It's not. It's parallel. As soon as your application produces one character of output, the second one starts working. One thing that you should know is when you produce a command, who is getting what you write. So you can have the command being consumed by the shell, by the application, by the database server, or by some other things. In this case, we have the shell command, we have a database client, and we have a database server. Sometimes you have everything in one machine, sometimes you have something in different machines. It doesn't matter from the command line point of view. So, in this case, we have MySQL with two parameters. On the command line, this goes first to the application. The application will scramble the password and send it to the server. You have something that has a pre-process. In this case, the password goes first to the client, then to the server, and the query is passed directly to the server. And then you get the result. Inside the MySQL client, you have commands that look like go to the server, but instead go to the client only, and something that goes to the server. Basic from the command line. The command line in most Unix places is made of one thing that is called read line. On Windows it's done differently, but I don't do Windows, so I don't really care very much. Read line is a magic thing that allows you to deal with the command line in a very powerful way. For example, you have commands to go to the start and the end of the line. You go forward and backward one word. You can clear the screen without leaving the command line. You can convert one word to uppercase or lowercase. You can delete one word, you can delete to the end of the line. You can undo what you were doing. You can get all these commands with man read line. Don't try woman read line because it doesn't work. This is not a sexist command, it's just a sad matter of fact. Some conventions in this talk. When I put the $, it means at the shell. When I put MySQL, it means at the database prompt. So let's talk about the bash shell. Any problems so far? I have to go fast because I have many things to show you. The components that you need to have an efficient command line is commands, aliases, variables, and functions. Commands is very simple. You just type the command with some parameters and you get something. An alias is a shortcut to something long that you don't want to repeat. For instance, my date is MySQL -e quote select now, and then you just type my date and you don't have to write all those long things. And you can put many more things inside this alias. You can call one alias from inside another alias, or you can use an alias to correct frequent mistakes. There are MySQL fanboys who will type myself instead of MySQL. So if this is your problem, you can just say myself equals MySQL. So whenever you make this mistake, the command line will do the right thing. Variables is something that you can that looks like an alias, but you can embed in other variables or use within alias. So you define an alias saying one word equals something, and then you can embed this thing in another command. For instance, the third line, my batch, equals MySQL minus n minus b, and then minus e set my query, and my query equals select core date. You can nest variables much more than this, and once you are familiar with the system, you are going to do this a lot more. Actually, this is almost like Perl 1.0. This is what the shell does. It's a very ancient Perl, but it's useful to know these kind of things. You can do this in Perl, but most of the times it's useful to do this on the shell, because this is what you need to do for constraints that don't belong to you. So in this case, I use many variables, I nest them together, and at the end, when I execute, it's like issuing this long query, but it's in a more manageable way. Let's talk about the other side, so the database client. Database client has some particularity that belong to this client itself. So in addition to the commands that you can send to the database, you can also put everything in a file and execute this file in different ways. For instance, you can use a Unix pipe, MySQL less than name of the file, or inside the client you can say source name of the file. In both cases it does the thing that you expect, so executes all the commands that are inside. Or you can have an application that will produce SQL and pipe it to the MySQL client. For instance, you can say echo, select something, and pipe it to MySQL. One important thing is the batch and table mode for the client. Depending on what you need to get from the client, you need to be aware of these differences. So if you are piping the input, it will go in batch mode. Batch mode means that it will give you the results without tables. Tables means this. So if I do MySQL minus t, this is what I get. I get the frame around the result. If I don't do this, I get just the result without the frame. So this is batch mode, this is table mode. Table mode is also when I execute a command that is not piped from another application. But if I want to force batch mode, I can say minus b, uppercase b, and then it will become batch mode. Now this is important. If I don't want the header, so the header is this one, the name of the field. If I don't want that, I just say minus capital N, and then I get only the result. Why is this important? Because when we want to combine results, we need to know when the client can isolate one specific result that I can use in another piece of the program. So we are now building our bricks for next usage. When I want to combine shell and MySQL, I can use the backticks to execute a shell command. Backticks is this inverse comma, inverse quote. But in modern shell, you can use dollar parentheses and close parentheses instead of backticks. Not only is more visible, but it's also easier to embed in case you need it. So this was the basics. Now let's go to the advanced techniques. When the super shell goes into into work. Let's talk about loops. I don't know you, but as a DBA, I have a lot of need to loop through my database results. So I combine